Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Ashfield series, 3 parishes which sit on the western side of Nottinghamshire between the towns of Sutton, Kirkby and Hucknall. Let's dive into them and see what they're like. Welcome back to Nottinghamshire again, folks, and to a brand new district. Welcome to Ashfield for the first time. There are only 3 of these in Ashfield, so today I'm going to be attempting to do all 3 inside one morning. Going to be interesting, isn't it? Here's the first one of the 3, and as you can see from the landmark behind me, we are definitely in a mining area, some mining wheels right there. So where will you find those wheels? They're quite tall. I'll tell you where you'll find them, in the parish of Annesley. This video is sponsored by Bassett Law Pro Clean, specialist floor and upholstery cleaners based in Retford, Nottinghamshire. Do you have a commercial space, own a restaurant, hotel or pub, maybe an office block? Bassett Law Pro Clean cover the entire country for commercial work. And they have a special offer. Quote the Village Idiot when you inquire and get a massive 7.5% off. Need it cleaned by the experts? Contact Bassett Law Pro Clean now. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Here we go then with Ashfield, a brand new area of Nottinghamshire for you all to feast your eyes on, but it's going to be a very short series. Despite Ashfield having quite a sizable population, most of the people who live here can be found in one of 2 big unparished areas to the north and south of a central band. It's in that central band that we find the parish of Annesley, located between the towns of Kirkby and Ashfield and Hucknall and lying within the Hidden Valleys area of Nottinghamshire. Annesley is a village that has a big history with coal mining. That much is obvious from the moment you arrive here. There are at least 2 memorials to the industry here, one a pair of winding wheels, the other a coal truck. Annesley Colliery was one of the most productive in the area and provided employment for hundreds of local men. For 135 years it churned out countless tons of coal and was the last deep working coal mine in the Leen Valley. Coal mining was the most important piece of history here, but let's not overlook the rest of it. You see, there was once a castle too, the remains of which can still be seen if you know where to go. There's also a massive hall once owned by the Sherwood Musters family, who have strong links to the Byrons of nearby Newstead Abbey. And there are 2 churches here, one with a roof and one without. Let's go and discover why as we take a trip around Annesley. We begin our trip around Annesley with a little drive around Sherwood Park, an industrial estate which is the main source of employment locally. Coal mining until the year 2000 held that honour, but now the mines have all disappeared and this has taken over. To give it its full Sunday name, this is the Sherwood Business Park Enterprise Zone, and it considers itself Nottingham's premier industrial estate. There was an overlap period though whilst the mines were still around. Sherwood Park has been here since 1979, and the first business to open upon it was the photographic equipment manufacturer Kodak. The park then grew massively in the 1990s, and now it's booming. The Kodak factory, though, no longer exists. It was closed down in 2005 amid the growing popularity of digital photography. The plant has now gone and it's been redeveloped, but it left behind some fisheries, known to local anglers as the Kodak Lakes. Our main walk begins at a pair of winding wheels which perfectly memorialise Annesley's history with coal mining. These were erected in 2009, 9 years after Annesley Colliery closed. For 135 years, coal was all this place knew. Annesley Colliery was the last deep mine in the Leen Valley to close. These stand as a poignant reminder of mining days. Next to the wheels is a large piece of artwork in the shape of an A, of course, for Annesley. This was added in 2019. Both of these stand on a junction off Annesley Cutting, a long straight road linking this area to the A611 through a forest. On the same corner is a former post office which was built during the 1890s after Annesley started to grow with the mine. It's now a B&B which retains this bit of history by way of its name, the Old Postie, and it has a good view of the nearby farms. As we reach a corner, we're met with a parish notice board. Mark Annesley off the list, 1 down, 2 to go in Ashfield. Now, most of the area that people generally know as Annesley or Annesley Woodhouse is not actually in Annesley Parish. It's a weird situation where most of the parish is actually to the south of what you would term Annesley itself. It's a very strange situation. However, this part definitely is within the boundaries. You're looking here at one of the Annesley rows, a long row of terraced houses that would have been for the mine workers. Let's head down here and see what we can find. Although there's no pit these days, Annesley retains some classic miners' housing, laid out in 2 rows off the cutting. This is Moseley Road and the other is Byron Road. They both have 10 blocks of 8 terraced houses, giving a total of 160. These grew with the colliery. They were all built between 1869 and 1872. Together, the rows form an elongated rectangle. They stretch north to Recreation Road, and some more modern semi-detached housing can be found here. We can also see here what's in the middle. There's some allotments, and I'm sure the fans will be loving these. However, this is small fry compared to years ago. All the terraced houses had their own allotment gardens at one time, and they covered this massive green space between the rows. After crossing the space, we're now onto the other row, Byron Road, which is named after the Byron family of Newstead Abbey. Around the back of the street is the much more modern Annesley and Felly Parish Hall, a recreation ground and a playing field. Given this area all grew thanks to the colliery, it's not surprising that the locals know it by a classic mining moniker, New Annesley. I'm sure you've noticed all the Halloween decorations that are still out. It's November the 1st today, so of course Halloween was last night, and of course people are usually in no rush to bring all their pumpkins indoors or put them in the bin or whatever you do with your pumpkins afterwards, so there's still plenty of decorations up. It's nice to see, actually, good community spirit, you know, because people come around trick-or-treating, and it's great to see that that kind of thing happens, quite frankly. Right, now, the sun's starting to come out, and it's revealing some bits that we're coming to. You can see over there there's a wood, and above the wood there's the spire of the church. Now, Annesley has got 2 churches. There's an old church and a new one. The one you can see right there is the new one, and we're heading for that in a moment. We'll go to the old one later. The path through the park is an uphill climb, and it brings you to School Hill, named for Annesley School, which no longer stands. Now in its place is a housing estate called Stonechurch View. The school served Annesley from 1872 until 1974. Stonechurch View sits just behind the A611, the main road into Annesley and Kirkby and Ashfield. Nice houses, these. School Hill might not have anything educational now, but it does have a sewage pumping station. A wonderful landmark indeed. Now we come to the Badger Box. This is Annesley's only pub, and it was built in 1962 on the site of a predecessor called the Robin Hood. Muster's Mews opposite stand on the site of the former Annesley Miners' Welfare Institute, which closed in 2009. These Gothic semi-detached cottages called the Grove run alongside the road. These were labourers' cottages built in 1870. After walking beyond them, we're at the other end of Stonechurch View as we make for a little green space near the church. Upon it is a coal truck, which tells us Annesley was the last deep mine in the Leen Valley, complete with its dates of operation. Now, facing that little green where you'll find the coal truck is this building here. That is the Annesley Church Hall. We've reached the point now where we're heading towards the church, which is away to our right here. Also, there's a cemetery behind this wall over there. So we're going to go in there first and then head up to the church, which is that away. Annesley and Felly Cemetery was opened in 1872, predating the church nearby by 2 years. This still has space for new burials. Annesley Woodhouse also has its own cemetery, not to be confused with this one, which is open every day from dawn until dusk. When it was opened, so too was this mortuary chapel. Mining was a dangerous job, and many men died working at Annesley Colliery. It's here in the cemetery where you'll find a memorial to the men lost in the aftermath of a pit fire in 1877. Now we come to the church. Dedicated to All Saints, this was built to the designs of T.G. Jackson in 1874 to serve the new village. However, it was substantially rebuilt in 1907 after a fire which gutted most of the interior and destroyed the roofs. It stands on land that was given by the Chaworth Musters family. That's just one of the things noted on this handy information panel. This shows all kinds of things about Annesley. In the bottom right you can see the former miners' welfare before it was demolished. Okay, so after the church I've made my way through this very muddy, wooded area and back onto Annesley Cutting, and from here it's a simple case of walking straight down the road back to where we began. Now, one of the things that was depicted on that little map that you saw outside the church was the position of Annesley Colliery, and now I'm going to take you on a little drive around a brand new housing estate which stands where the colliery once was. Annesley Colliery's existence might well pass you by if you didn't know about it. To the immediate east of the memorials, you'll find this brand new housing estate, which is built on the site of the former pit. It looks very different now to how it would have done less than 25 years ago. Sunk in 1865, Annesley Colliery was some 649 yards deep. 800 men produced over 450,000 tonnes a year from the top hard seam, which reached the surface at Bentink Colliery, to which Annesley was linked. It had 2 shafts, and it was developed by the Worswicks from Coal Alton in Leicestershire. Coal was first reached in 1867 at a depth of 420 yards. Apart from a short period in the mid-1990s, the colliery remained in production until it closed in January 2000. Its closure brought about not only the end of coal mining in Annesley, but in Ashfield as a whole. Not far from the colliery there was also a railway station on the Robin Hood line, which was built to serve it. And one last thing before we leave this area behind. Between the 2 rows, Annesley rows, you've got this industrial building called Poppetware Limited. Looks like it's abandoned though, looks boarded up in places. And then you've also got the bus stops. There are 2 of these. There's one on one side of the road and one on the other. Here we go. Annesley's served by the 3s, which as you can see go into Nottingham. And there you go, you can see we are now back to where we were before at the end of Moseley Road. Now there are 2 more things that I'd like to cover, well technically 3, The two are like literally right next door to each other. Two more things I want to cover in this parish. One of them is Annesley Castle, and that's where we're heading next. This could be a little bit awkward to access. It's kind of in the middle of a dual carriageway. I'll do my best with it, but yeah, we'll see what happens. To the south of the village, the A611 runs towards Hucknall. In the middle of it is the site of Annesley Castle. As you can see, not much remains of it now. It was a motte and bailey castle of the type introduced to England by the Normans. Fragments of bank and ditch across the bailey indicate it was divided into two courts, and it was likely made of timber. It's not known with any great certainty when the castle was built, but sketchy records suggest it may have been around 1220. However, they might be referring instead to a Norman hall, where Robin Hood's boots were reputedly kept. Speaking of him, legend says he used to frequent this area, looking for wealthy travellers to rob as they travelled along local roads. He'd need to be superhuman to stop traffic on the A611 today though. Visiting Annesley Castle means crossing this busy road. Now I'm sure you'll agree with me that you can't really see much of Annesley Castle's remains, can you? It's not the kind of landmark that's a massive tourist attraction. However, Annesley also has two other buildings which definitely could well be termed tourist attractions, and here they are, right on the edge of the A608. You're looking at Annesley Old Church here, which has no roof, and right next door to it you've got Annesley Hall, and it's these two landmarks that'll finish off this episode. The new church we saw earlier replaced Annesley Old Church, the empty shell of which still stands just off the A608. Like its successor, the old church was also dedicated to All Saints. It was allowed to become derelict in the 1940s. The present building replaced a Norman church in 1356. Although it's now in a ruinous state, the remains are Grade 1 listed. Features of interest included the east window of the south aisle, a 13th century sedilia, and a 17th century royal arms in stucco. There's a handy timeline on one of its walls. In 1963, the old church was used for an amateur production of Dracula. The Lady Chapel was once known as the Felly Chantry after the priory at nearby Felly, to whom the patronage once belonged. The church is mentioned in the writings of both Lord Byron and D.H. Lawrence. As we already know, both lived close to this area. The surrounding graveyard contains a variety of 17th and 18th century grave markers, and there's one in particular that stands out. This is the Chayworth Musters Memorial, a cairn which stands over a tomb containing the remains of some of the family. The Chayworth Musters family were strongly linked to the Byrons. In fact, Mary Chayworth was the boyhood lover of the poet Lord Byron. The Chayworth Musters family lived at Annesley Hall, which you can see from the churchyard. This too is a Grade 1 listed building. The hall dates from the 13th century but was greatly enlarged in the 17th. It suffered a fire in 1997 and it hasn't been lived in since. It's in very poor condition and is not open to the public. Both it and parts of its adjacent stable block are boarded up. Thankfully, both the hall and the church are conserved by English heritage, and they're on their buildings at risk register. And that will do us for Annesley. 1 down and 2 to go in Ashfield. Annesley is the only one of the 3 on the eastern side of the M1, so next week we'll start by hopping over the nearby motorway junction to the second. Next week's is historically important, but a lump smaller than Annesley. Join me there in 7 days' time. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.